Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hi, can you hear me? No, I cannot hear you.
And now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, this is the lunch break, so we're making some adaptation. At this moment, the room is empty. I just wanted to be sure that when it will be your time, that you can present easy. So the idea is actually that maybe after we have this explanation, I will put you. You can put yourself on mute. Yes. And then at one moment, you probably are following by live stream or you will be following by live stream the conference, the previous time slot.
You're asking if I followed this morning on the live stream?
Oh, if you will follow now.
Now, no, I closed it.
Okay, no problem. No, it's because I will mute our teams because between 2 o'clock and 2:30 there is another speaker.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but I would leave the teams open, but I will mute it. But we can communicate through the chat.
Okay.
And it's also through the chat that I will tell you that we're almost at your presentation.
Okay.
And I will also say in the chat that you can unmute yourself. And then normally you will be in contact with the room and you will hear our moderator introducing you, and he will then give you the floor. Yes?
Okay, I will hear it from Teams, right?
You will hear it in Teams because the YouTube live stream has a 20-second delay.
Okay.
So in the Teams, I will write it first in chat, and at one moment you will probably hear us through the Teams. Yes?
Okay.
For the presentation, the idea is that you share your screen.
Yeah.
You can put it in maximum size. If you want, we can try it now.
Yeah, sure. Just give me a sec. Is it showing?
Yes. I don't know if you want, you can also put the cam on, that we can see you.
Ah, yes. Yes, sorry. Yes, better like that.
Okay, that is better like that. So, so I don't know because we have full screen. Okay. Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have a presentation. We see you. We can hear you. You can hear us.
Mm-hmm.
So normally after your presentation, people out of the room will be able to ask you questions if there is time. Sorry.
I didn't get.
So
So people will ask questions.
after your presentation, it's possible that people from the audience will
Yeah.
ask you a question. So we will don't unmute yourself directly. The moderator will say bye, and then we go to the next presentation.
Okay. Good.
It's possible that from Aurora, I have to choose name, the other person that is going to present in the time slot, will be the same teams. That may be easier. So I would ask that if you are not the one presenting, then you do turn off your cam. If you
need to clockwise.
did you hear that last
Yeah,
one?
for Canon it's the opposite, but with Nikon
I'm sorry, I didn't really hear the last part on the camera, so I should not put my camera when the other presenters are presenting, right?
I think that would be best because otherwise we have to cancel.
let me set up something.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I think there are a lot of background noises.
Yes, people are getting in and.
I think someone needs to call them.
So the idea was that the other person normally will have the same teams open.
Yeah.
And that then each group is presentation. But at the moment you do presentation, you have the cam on. If you don't have the presentation, you have the cam off.
Okay.
So for the presentation, or the question directed to you, you should have the cam on.
That's okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Just can you tell me who's before me? Is it Marcos?
Yeah, just we can cross if you want, but it's basically the look this and
Yes, so you will be after Marcus Nogueira.
that. I mean,
Okay, good.
But I have Marcus has not shown yet.
Okay, so I stay connected, but I can.
You can stay connected. I think it's easy.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will leave it on during the first. So now
so with all the inputs, we developed what she's going to show you.
hello Marcos. If you want, you can unmute yourself for a moment. Marcos, if you want, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
Sorry to be late. I was trying to open Teams and it was taking long.
Okay, it's no problem. So normally at 2 o'clock we will start with a presentation here physically, and at 2:30 we will start with the presentation of Mr. Nogueira. Yes, and then.
Okay. 2:30. Fine.
Yes, I think we have 2:30. Yes.
Okay. How much time do I have?
I think they give you 20 minutes and 5 minutes questions.
Okay, that's plenty.
So also to explain, I will explain a bit to Elodie. So if you are following the conference, because the teams we have now, I will mute at 2 o'clock. Yes, I will leave it open.
Okay.
We can interact to the chat.
Perfect.
In the chat, I will tell you, like in 2 minutes, we will go to your presentation. And then you can unmute yourself, and you will hear the presentator, the moderator in the room, who will introduce you and then give you a word.
Okay. Thank you. And I will make presentation from my computer, so I share slides myself.
If you want, you can try it now.
Do you see it?
Yes, you can put it
Okay.
full screen.
Yeah. Yes, I will put it full screen for the presentation. Okay, good.
So after your presentation, people of the audience will be able to ask you questions. So don't unmute yourself yet. Stay visible. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and then when the presentation will be done for LOD, it will be good that you turn off your cam and mute yourself.
Okay.
Okay, but maybe
Okay.
you don't have to leave the Teams. If you want, you can. If you are watching the live stream on YouTube.
No, it's better to keep it on Teams. That's
Yes.
confusing.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Okay, fine.
I'm not sure if you're going to hear the presentation by Teams.
No, don't care, Jürgen.
Okay.
That it will be fine.
Okay.
It's just okay, good.
Okay. Perfect. So.
So good luck. Good luck for the session. Take care.
So
Bye.
I will leave the presentation, the Teams open. The next step is we will mute, and if you want to contact me through the chat,
Okay.
okay? And then I will
Okay.
try.
Thank
I
you.
will contact you and ask you to give the presentation.
Okay.
Okay?
Super.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care. See you. Bye bye.
gewoon meteen los?
Ja, hij hoeft mij niet te... I have been introduced, so...
Ja, maar ik heb de sessie misschien even introduceren.
Oh yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Take a seat.
Oh.
Now you should be able to enter the forum. Everyone should. The IT checked it.
Shall we? Not 100%, but I think we are 90%. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming back. We will continue this next session with the presentation of our star product, the Knowledge Exchange Platform. That will be introduced by Jean-Luc, the coordinator, who needs no further introduction, I think. We all know him. Followed by Mariana Mata Lara, who is a senior researcher at Leonardo, and she has research and practical experience in the field of coastal management, marine conservation strategies, environmental health assessment, and policy and socioeconomic analysis. And most importantly, she has been responsible for the whole dissemination activities in this project and for the technical design and development of this knowledge exchange platform. So she will be telling us all the details. But first, Jean-Luc.
Okay. Thank you, Joris. So this morning we had an interesting discussion on the next steps for coastal, which is highly relevant, of course, how we're going to proceed with this work. I already got some nice questions on how the kind of approach of coastal can be used for different activities. In fact, we have anticipated this in the project design. So to create a durable legacy of the project, we have planned for setting up or launching a knowledge exchange platform. It has been prepared, but in fact today is the day that we will launch it. So I will briefly present the purpose and explain the purpose of the platform. And then Mariana will show you some functionalities. So what is the knowledge exchange platform about? Well, as the name of the platform says, it's to exchange knowledge and expertise. It's a way to create added value of the project. We have been working together, we have been working with stakeholders, but that by itself is not sufficient to ensure that we will continue with this work. So we need something to support that and to create a better basis for supporting coastal and rural policy making, and also to introduce the systems thinking into the policy making. We already said that communication of results is important. We are most of us are scientists. We develop our models. We spend a lot of time and also a bit of resources on it. But these models are not always easy to communicate. So this is one of the important tasks. Now, if we look at the project website, you will also see that there is a link to a knowledge exchange platform. The latest version looks a bit different, but the way it's been organized, it gives you access in different ways, depending on your background. So it's aimed at different target groups, like researchers, stakeholders, coastal and rural, but also policymakers. Target groups can also include the European Commission, for sure, and also citizens. We have different activities. We had different activities in the coastal project, and citizens were also represented in the workshops as stakeholders. We know that we have citizen science, so citizens and the general public are important to make this a success. We cannot bring in innovation if people are not aware of the need and the urgency of the problem. And systems thinking can help us do that. Now, looking at the platform, it sounds like an IT system, but it's much more than that. You can design an IT system, but if it's not used, maintained, and further developed, it will be of little value. So the main focus should be on bringing together the community and make a start. So we have discussed this already with the project partners, and quite a number of them have expressed their interest in participating in the platform, which is a very important starting point for this platform. Now, looking at the platform itself, here you see a kind of structure, how it could work. So you will have the platform itself, which contains the tools that we developed, the examples like the business roadmaps, the policy guidelines, but also the causal loop diagrams and models if necessary. And these can then be used to develop new applications or to improve models if necessary on demand. When you start doing that, you will have new tasks in terms of maintenance and development, which can be carried out by the experts or the partners who are working on the platform using their tools. So it's not only about further developing the existing models, but also looking for new opportunities and developing new applications. Looking at the platform, there's also, I think, a difference with the Coastal project. In Coastal, most partners went through a similar process, which was very important to organize the project and also for presenting the outcomes. So they went through a workflow from qualitative to quantitative work, and eventually these policy recommendations. If we have a platform, we imagine that there will be different roles. For example, you may have partners who work on communication aspects, presenting results. Others can work on modeling or data management, development of tools. What's also important is to look for new opportunities for collaboration with stakeholders, but also for projects, prospection, and of course, developing the policy recommendations. In principle, all participants to the platform, so everyone here is invited, can join and have participate in several or most of these roles, but it's possible to make a choice there. And that's what we are working on. We are preparing a memorandum of understanding, which will be signed by the interested parties, and there they can indicate the role in the platform. The platform should also be seen in the context of the exploitation trajectory. This is very important in all Horizon projects. So the European Commission wants us to take the outcomes of the project further and to create a durable impact, both economic and scientific. It's not only an impact for the project partners or the stakeholders involved, but it can also be external parties. And we have examined the pathways or the strategy for these exploitations. We have an exploitation plan, which is also, in fact, a blueprint for how the platform could be developed. And we did that by looking at the technology readiness levels, which are well known for industrial applications, and we translated these to Coastal. And we are now in a phase where we have validated models and we have applied them, but we can develop the applications further. So we are looking at the diagram here, we are almost in step 8 or 9 of the technology readiness or the Coastal readiness level. Now this is the idea, the general idea. Where we are now is that we have been discussing in the project consortium how to do this. So we have a platform which will be presented by Marianne. We have also a nice concept, I think, for a brief memorandum of understanding, which explains the purpose of the platform, some conditions for the parties who join the platform, and also the different roles. And the idea is that we will, the coming months, we will send it around in the consortium, but it can also be distributed externally, and that parties who are interested will join the platform by signing this memorandum of understanding, and then they will have be given a role in the platform. There's also another question: how can we make the platform create a broader impact to parties who were not involved in the platform or have not yet decided to sign this agreement? Well, these parties will also be given access to results. We are discussing on which conditions, but that will create an even broader impact, and we hope they will also join forces with us. The general idea, to sum up this introduction, is that the platform should help create a broader impact, introduce systems thinking to a wider audience, also to a wider group, a forum of practitioners, and not only limited to coastal rural systems, because we know that there are many other applications, like if you look at, for example, energy transition, food transition, there are quite a number of challenges which call for systemic approaches. So I think we should see it broader than that, but the starting point will of course be the models that have been presented very nicely this morning. So with that, I would like to conclude my introduction and give the floor to Mariana.
Thank you. So the platform you're seeing is completely different now to the one Jean-Luc presented. That was our previous version, which was a bit overcomplicated and it had a lot of steps to access information. So we re-transformed it completely. And now is this simple looking layout. And all the information I will show you here is basically all the digested information from all the results we had in the project. So we wanted, instead of uploading all the deliverables and PDFs that you would need to go through, to kind of present it in a more engaging, in different way. And well, we really hope you will like it. So the first part are the best practices, which are basically 12 focused in different regions. I'm just gonna open one so you check out how it will look. These are color-coded in terms of the different topics that are related to. It presents the issues, business opportunities, it has internal links, and so on. And then it presents, there are other best practice examples in this region that you can look into further. So that's the, wait a second, let me just go back. So that is one way of checking them. The other is to filter them here. So all of those presented in each of these 12 regions, you can scan through them here based on the topic. So maybe you're interested in marine spatial planning, which we were talking about before, knowledge and education, water management, and so on. Or you can screen them through a region. So for example, if we click in the North Sea, then there are all these best practice and the colors are related to different topics. So we can go into them, check them out, go directly to the website of the best practice it's talking about, and so on. But I'm gonna leave that later for you to explore in more detail. Then we have the roadmaps, which we all saw them in the morning. It was all these policy recommendations, and here you will have per MAL, so per case study that we had. You open one and it will show, there you go, this kind of summarized map of how it looks in the Baltic. So you will have the key sectors and actors, the beneficiaries, the synergies dimension, and so on, as well as the main components and recommendations. And basically what you have to do is start exploring each and one of them. You will have things just to go through, like reading. There will be others that you will have to okay, this is a bad example, but click or like scroll or, you know, different ways of presenting the information. And every single business map has this structure, so you will be able to check all these separate sections for each of them, which is, it makes it very easy to navigate and to explore. And then if we go back, we will also have the models. Now here, because we're talking about wanting to reach different types of public, we did something very simple, which is just explaining in one paragraph what the model does. So when we open one, we will find a GIF, which will be showing the different ways the model behaves and how it works. We will find a paragraph explaining the model broadly, and then a link to access it and download it if interested. So this will take us to Zenodo repository where we're uploading all our information and where we can request access for this model, and so we can play with it and see how it behaves. So we have all these models, access to all of the models developed here. And then scenarios and visions. This is really nice. These are the flip books which someone mentioned before. And basically it tells us a story. So each flip book tells us the story of each of the MALs or each component of the MALs. So basically what you have to do is read it as if it would be a book and flip it. That's why it's called flip book. And you will find 12, I believe. So you have many to explore. Some of them is the same flip books, but in the national language, like in Mar Menor, we have the version in English and Spanish. In Belgium is the same with Dutch and English, but all the rest are in English. So you will find those there. And then we have the repository. So here, along the whole project, we were developing these abstracts of every action we would take in the project. We have more than 90 abstracts, but it basically is a summary that EpiAgri was asking for us to say or summarize what we were doing. So all the practice abstracts are here, but because no one was gonna go through a list of 90 topics, then here you can also filter them. You can look by the location, you can look by topic, or you can simply type in a word that you're interested in, and it will tell you, okay, related to water, you will find all these practice abstracts. Similar newsletters we created along the project, and then links to other relevant platforms or projects that we had, including the link to Zenodo, where we're uploading all the results and data. And finally, and this is something Jean-Luc stressed on in the morning, the forum, which this is going to be a space for discussing different topics. So for example, we have the different categories for the MALs. More categories can be created. And once we enter one, someone can start a thread. So for example, how to connect and reinforce the different policies for a sustainable use of marine space. Maybe it's a question I have, and all of you can participate in. Sorry. So you can enter, your profile will be there. I need water. And then you can, this is what happens when you cycle in the night. Don't do it here. Sorry. And yeah, someone will reply, you will get a notification, and the conversation can keep going. Right now, the forum is open just for partners because we were testing it. But from next week onward, we will make an announcement in our social media and so on. From next week onward, it will be open for anyone who wants to join. So keep an eye on that so you can create your account and join it. And that's basically it for the KEP. You have a contact info. You can read more about it, and the rest is what I presented. Any questions about the KEP? Perfect, then it works. I think you need to explore it, and then if you have questions, you can write me, and I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. So if there are any questions later on, you can get back to that, or right now, before we go on to the next two speakers. No one? Okay, the next two speakers are here with us via an online connection, so we will go to the online again, and they will help us, they will introduce us or share their experiences regarding two different European funded projects, also regarding the support of rural development and policy using stakeholder platforms. First, the Aurora project, and that focuses on increasing connectivity and overcome the digital divide between rural and urban areas. And secondly, the Sherpa project that focuses on developing interfaces that link science, society and policy to help shape future rural policies. Now the idea is that we hope that by connecting with these two other projects, that we can reflect on the usefulness of our own knowledge exchange platform and also see how we can combine the different experiences of three different European funded projects towards further collaboration. Well, the first speaker is Mr. Marcos Antonio Nogueira. He's the coordinator of the Aurora project and head of office of the Alentejo Permanent Representation to the EU. He holds a Master of Mechanical Engineering and is a researcher in the field of mathematical modeling. He has authored numerous publications. As an advisor, he was responsible for the design and development of systems used by international industrial groups and public authorities, and he has led the development of a significant number of projects and programs for public entities, with special emphasis on cities and regions in Portugal, but also beyond. Marcos, do you hear us?
Yes. Good afternoon.
Then you can start your presentation.
Thank you for the introduction. You did it long. But okay. Anyway, I have to express my, I would say, gratitude for your invitation, because it's really a pleasure to have the opportunity to share with you an important moment. Showing the final results of a project, it's indeed something is significant, it's nice. And I'm a bit sorry that we tried to make it possible for me to be in person. I'm speaking from Brussels, so indeed it's nearby, but finally, because this is the week of regions and there are plenty of events and we have a delegation and many things going on this week. That's the reason why finally it was totally impossible to travel to Ostend and to be with you. And I do believe in cooperation. That's very much what we try to do. And in that sense, being with a fellow project, two fellow projects, with kind regards to Elodie Saleh, being with fellow projects is always opportunity for cooperation. And indeed, this thing of building Europe, it's about cooperating well in unity, friendship, and that is always easier to do in person. So I'm speaking online, but in spirit I'm with you, and I would like really to be there. I'm going to use a PowerPoint presentation, and that is just a simple. I will go through basic ideas that are related to Aurora, but what I hope you may keep in mind is indeed our openness to work together and to expand the results, not from our project but from all our projects, to expand those results, because together cooperating we may be stronger and we go further. And that's why Aurora is a kind of big that's a big operation. We have 25 partners, 15 millions, 12 countries. And those 15 millions are expanded in an investment platform to 50 millions to open calls for projects and to open calls for large-scale applications and to achieve the digital transition in many European regions. Indeed, using smart communities as the vehicle or as the instrument to leverage that transformation and to make it to have a purpose. Digital transition has to have a purpose, and that purpose is indeed to work for the good,
Marcos,
to work for our community. Please.
Marcos, apologies. We are not seeing your presentation. I think you shared it, but we are not seeing it.
Oh, that's bad. Thank you for letting me know. Let me see what is going on. I will try to share it again. Just see now if
you should push on, but you have this probably the English version, the Dalen. Oh, yeah.
Can you see it now?
No.
No. Let me try another trick. Sorry for this kind of accident.
You're probably sharing the wrong screen. So you have to select.
Because I'm using only one screen and I'm trying to share the window, but it's indeed not okay. Let me do it again.
Screen now the document.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, super, thank you. Okay, let's, I was just a little bit talking about Aurora as a H2020 project. So it's a little bit of a unique kind of project because we have this two-stage approach. So first project itself, so the Horizon H2020 Innovation Action. But as it goes from TRL 7 to TRL 9, we are supposed to be very close to the market and indeed to achieve an impact. And for that, it's part of our project to establish the investment platform to allow regions to work better with the project results and to use it to achieve with their own hubs of smart communities to achieve a digital transition for a good purpose. In that sense, it was vital, and that's indeed part of the initial idea behind the call. That's vital to work with the rural areas, and that's why I'm so glad to be with you, because it's rural and coastal. Indeed, that combination makes things even more special. But to work with rural areas and to have smart communities that work everywhere. And indeed, the purpose, the final idea is to give smart cities a human face. We could do smart cities with technology and to do a lot of stuff and indeed to forget about people and their communities. And here the purpose is indeed to work with rural areas where communities are stronger in the sense that they tend to be indeed more structuring, and where the technology aspects are clearly beyond or going after the care of the communities, and to make sure the project results and indeed the digital ecosystem we are building together, it's working all over. Meaning, sometimes I use this similarity with an aircraft. So you may have an aircraft that only flies during daytime. Okay, it flies, but it has to be not in night hours. And we may improve the instruments and to have aircraft that works at night. Or we may have an all-weather aircraft. And that's what we do with our digital ecosystem for smart communities, is indeed to have an all-weather approach that also works for lower density, for remote areas, for emerging regions, indeed for coastal and rural portions of European territories that tend to be sometimes not so well served in terms of innovation or access to innovation, and so the opportunities, access to other opportunities to achieve digital and digital transformation and establish ecosystems of innovation. So this is Aurora, as I said, it's quite a big project. We have 25 partners, 12, that's not 11 now, 12 with Poland, and pilot regions that are expanding during the phase 2 Smart Tomorrow Innovation, Smart Tomorrow Investment Platform, expanding from 8 to, I would say, 20 pilot regions, and a lot of domains that have to be part of the smart communities definition. All over 4 years for the H2020 project, following it up synchronized with the European Digital Agenda over 10 years until 2030. This is just an overview of our partners. So we have a quite diverse group of partners with some SMEs, universities, startups, very interesting startups, establish digital suppliers, so software suppliers, and also municipalities, regions. That's led by the Portuguese region of Alentejo, to which I have the honor of representing in Brussels. And we have quite a well-structured approach, which is quite centered on the opportunity of activating capabilities, competencies, knowledge in the regions in order to make it possible to do the transformation with communities, by communities, and for the communities. And you may ask, what is that thing of smart community? And I would say that's people together, taking care of people itself, and taking care of the ones who need it the most, and taking care of nature. And when we talk about coastal areas, it's where wonderful and amazing nature is, and so that need is even stronger. We know very well that there are still a lot of gray areas and indeed blank areas in terms of access to infrastructure, interconnectivity, infrastructure, and also there is, and necessarily it is a drawback and a barrier hampering access to innovation, and it does it so when it comes to the access and the quality of services. That's a problem, because we are supposed to have the same standard of public services, of access to public services, both in rural and urban areas. A coastal citizen is not less European than was someone living in a big city. So that's why, and that's the principle, that's why when it comes to access to knowledge, access to innovation, access to expression, access to the opportunities of entrepreneurship and taking care of our own lives and doing it for the good of our communities, that's absolutely critical, that both urban and rural areas are well balanced. That's perhaps the reason why we do have most of our partners coming from peripheric areas in Europe and the region. So we have quite a strong partnership with Norway, and I hope that Europe, for me, it's indeed the common house also for the UK, for Norway, for our friends, partners, and indeed fellow Europeans. We have quite a strong presence of Norway on this project, and Norway has Arctic areas where clearly the density is an issue. We may have the same feeling in other regions, and we have, for instance, in Austria, the southern Burgenland region with quite advanced infrastructures and quite advanced solutions, but indeed quite a need also of integration, because when it comes to low density regions, rural regions, and so coastal regions, we need to know how to integrate it very well, and to make it usable and feasible when it comes to innovate for smart communities, to make it feasible with those aspects of the low density economy that make the business models to to have the need of being very well integrated into the strategies of the regions. That's what we have in Portugal and Spain. That's why, for instance, the lead region Alentejo, that is one of the most low density regions in Europe. It's also actually the lead partner, and indeed a sort of lighthouse when it comes to these innovative integrated approaches. And that we can see it for the use cases we are using to validate a public digital environment. That's indeed the main purpose of Aurora, is to establish that a digital architecture that allows digital services and digital based services to use the same public digital environment to integrate and to work together. That public digital environment, or Aurora middleware, provides the services with a common infrastructure for interoperability between several systems, interoperability between solutions, interoperability between services, which indeed make them to be more efficient and so easier to implement and easier to fund, to make it possible to achieve interoperability covering multiple sectors and multiple regions, to do it under a secure, with collective security, which a quite strong approach for cybersecurity within a collective security environment, and with the framework of data transparency that allows indeed sharing data under the conditions of the ethical conditions that are indeed quite important to keep and very well define the digital European approach, or the digital model for Europe. That's very cooperative approach, because every time we do have small applications that finally find a common ground, a common street, a common space, a public space to share and work together, those applications may be small, may scale up within Aurora, the middleware, may scale up within this digital environment, and they become bigger and reach the scale they need indeed to be viable. That is important because we may have co-development, we may exercise the cooperative capability of driving solutions from the idea to the utilization. That's very important indeed. That's very important feature, and that's why we establish starting pilots where we may combine those several use cases in order to validate their applicability within and by using cross-domain middleware. That's a digital architecture where we have horizontal services, marketplace, vertical tools working well together, and where there is freedom as a concept that indeed defines this innovation as a service from the capability of co-development for indeed the possibility of co-implementing solutions for the communities across regions and all across Europe. The funny thing is that the project started before the European Innovation Agenda, but that's quite well aligned what is now said by the Commission in the digital European Innovation Agenda. That's the need of cooperating, the need of crossing barriers or crossing borders of sectors, regions, backgrounds, and nature of entities collaborating, and to build our European digital model and our European digital sovereignty in the end, from collaboration and cooperation between small applications that altogether reach the critical mass to keep serving the communities either on urban or rural areas. So there is quite an attention we pay to roadmapping the impacts, and to be sure that indeed we are providing project results that are able to leverage the impact. And indeed it's the case. If we provide something that's unique and very much welcome by all the small scale agents and small scale stakeholders of the digital transformation, our European startups, our young people coming from universities willing to start new ideas, our elderly people eager to use digital opportunities to express themselves. All those are welcome in a public digital environment where the services may work together in order to scale up, to get viable and better served. And that possibility of sourcing innovation, sourcing talent, sourcing ideas everywhere and to make it work everywhere too, it's indeed the way and the mechanism to balance citizenship opportunities between rural and urban areas. And that it's the possibility and the approach that from the digital side, from the digital transformation, to ensure that the living standards and the opportunities are the same when we are Europeans in cities or Europeans in rural areas. That balance is indispensable, not only because it's a matter of basic justice between European citizens, but also because we need to find balance. We need to find balance in Europe between urban and rural areas to keep developing our economy in terms of our capabilities and in terms of the offer side, which indeed is also preventing macroeconomic imbalances that we are feeling somewhere in our economy with lots of with the growing inflation and lots of symptoms that the offer side is not developing so well as the monetary mass or the demand side. So that's very much the reason where we have to source new ideas, to source innovation out of regions that could initially be excluded from digital transformation. This is our roadmap for the 10 years, so 2030, aligned with the European Digital Agenda, with also with the European Innovation Agenda. And we are more or less here, so merging new regions to the project and indeed being able to establish the investment platform and to be capable of keeping financing and funding the transformation towards more innovative smart communities. That's we name it Smart Tomorrow. That's the brand. It was initiated in 2019. Indeed, 3 years and 3 days ago, because it was 2019, October the 9th, here in Brussels, in the Committee of Regions, with a diverse panel of institutions, regions, cities, and stakeholders, establishing indeed the common will of collaborating and cooperating in order to use the smart communities as the leverage to change and for transformation. And indeed, that's the way to expand impact. Not only there is no selfish approach here, not only from rural, but from all and every each single project, H2020 and now Horizon Europe, that has interesting and important results that may need to scale up, and scaling up also goes through the digital side. So they need that public digital environment, our middleware, in order to get the interoperability, the security, and the data transparency needed for them to scale up. Okay, investment platform has lots of technicalities, as it is every time we are bundling a scale up of new applications, which is quite a technology approach with the roadmaps and the strategies in the region in order to achieve this digital matchmaking between skills, technology, resources, and so making the investment platform to be consistent on delivering transformation. This is what we have planned. The infrastructure is would name the middleware. It's the name for it. It's neutral host. So to have infrastructure that indeed may serve several owners of services, which is quite important because if we have the infrastructure bundled with only one single provider, it doesn't work in terms of business model when the economic density it's lower. So for the rural areas and also the coastal areas, we need to unbundle infrastructure from the service provider. So that's the neutral host approach. With resources, that's a lot of work done on open IoT and with skills that we are launching the the smart learning communities for our regions in order to have ready the skills for the innovation, transformation, and change. This is where investment is needed, and that's why Smart Tomorrow is an open platform for all the stakeholders with project results, all the visions with needs, and all the innovators with ideas to join. As I said, we are moving from this preparatory stage where the technology was the critical point indeed for the investment platform launching. It's going to be important to pay attention to what we are going to introduce and present from the European Commission's booth in Barcelona World Expo for Smart Cities. You are all welcome, not only to be there, but indeed to be together, enjoying this adventure of bringing our regions to benefit from smart communities and investment platform. We are working a lot with other projects. I hope we made it very clear that Coastal is here. We like your approach, your results, your indeed the sympathy of your cooperation drive, and also cooperating a lot and working a lot with Living in You movement launched by the European Commission some time ago. That's why indeed we are doing a lot to cooperate directly with the regional stakeholders. So during the Portuguese presidency, first semester of 2021, we had the first edition of the European Regions for Smart Community Summit, where we started debating the definition of smart communities, and indeed it was realized and released during the same summit, European Visions for Smart Communities in May 22, including the celebration of Day of Europe with the European Commissioner for Regions. We had also Commissioner Breton for the single market and the participation of the President of Committee of Regions. 63 regions represented in the summit, and indeed with the single objective of celebrating the possibility of having a common definition for smart communities. We named it Alentejo Protocol, so you are quite welcome to share it too, and indeed to make it be a reference point for quantifying the impacts of investing on smart communities, also the starting point for having and sharing an ontology for defining roadmaps and synchronizing investment strategies on the several regions. That Alentejo Protocol defines 25 areas of integration. We start with smart farming, but it could be smart fishing from coastal areas, and a lot of other areas, some vertical domains, some interfaces with public users and also some technology principles. I said it already, data transparency, security, collective security, and indeed to make it possible to establish cross-cutting domains, because without skills, governance, culture, and indeed ability of using and being present on media, we may not achieve the final drivers of establishing a prosumer culture for digital, where we are all users and publishers or promoters or developers of digital solutions. It works with co-development, indeed to achieve a stronger European digital sovereignty. So this is our loop, our cycle for innovation, and that's our spin-off. So Smart Tomorrow as a spin-off, an initiative from Aurora, and the idea is that never again we have project results that are not used, but it starts also with learning. It goes from learning to innovate and to invest, and then to use, and using provides us with feedback that allows us to learn again. So this is the essential loop to widen our impact and indeed to achieve a sound framework for innovation and change in all our communities, to better serve people, better protect nature, and better develop our communities. So the idea is indeed to have smart community beats, because we have quite a strong set of open calls in future. So that's one of our missions, is to establish open calls for innovation. And it makes it's in practice, it works with smart community beats that are indeed fulfilling the definition of Alentejo Protocol and the established ontology, to which we need to have also the investors and the funding programs on board. So this is Auroral, this is Smart Tomorrow ecosystem. And this is a presentation just to invite you to share this adventure. And sharing means that we are also eager to use your instruments and tools and to make your results to be part of this common offer for smart communities to enjoy and benefit. That's why we are establishing an European interest group for which your stakeholders are quite welcome. And that European interest group, it's a sort of community around Auroral that includes from startups to other EU projects, passing by community leaders and indeed authorities, in order to make possible to achieve that co-development capability, in order to have a proper smart communities ecosystem that has the critical mass to achieve change. So that co-development process indeed is making or bringing to practice some innovative approaches, that it's combinatorial innovation that's quite well explained theoretically, but indeed it's a very interesting tool in order to have these studios, these launches, these ateliers for co-creation, co-innovation, co-design, and indeed co-development of solutions. So that's why saying that you are welcome is not, it's not just an expression of sympathy towards your results, projects, and stakeholders, but that's indeed an expression of the need of unity in order to achieve impact and results. So this is the vision process. That's what we are doing in order to establish the ecosystem, and that's why I'm so thankful to having had the opportunity to share this moment with you and to be present on your event. So the best of luck to make your results to have an impact. Hope we can cooperate in future, and indeed, when we say that regions are welcome, it's also for the coastal regions. We are from Alentejo, we are also a coastal region, and indeed one of the best preserved coastal regions in Europe, which is quite an enhanced responsibility for the regional authorities, and also for the role of cooperating with regions, networks, and institutions here in Brussels in order to help building a safe towards environment, a safe Europe. This is the end of my presentation. I just want to use one more minute in order to say that next Friday we are going to do the event Smart Communities EU Meets Ukraine, in order to make it clear to everyone that our Ukraine friends and partners are welcome, and also to say that we are very glad to work with all the talent, creativeness, and strength that we see in Ukraine, and also to say that we don't give up Europe, and that we don't give up freedom, and we don't give up unity, the same way that unity means victory and victory will mean peace. So you are also very welcome to our event Friday with our Ukraine colleagues, indeed with the Ukrainian government, the European Commissioner for Environment, and also some other officers from the European Commission. Okay, thank you. That's what I had to share.
Thank you.
I'm here to still being a little bit part of your event. May you be kind enough to allow me.
Thank you very much, Marcos. Well, we have room for one or two short questions to Marcos before we go to the next speaker. So, are there any questions for Marcos at this stage?
Thank you, Joris. Thank you, Marcos, for giving a very good picture of the Smart Communities platform. I would like to ask you, you mentioned working with various funding channels. Can you say a bit more about the approach behind it, how you handling that? Do you have specific activities aimed at reaching out and finding these channels, working with personal networks?
I'm not sure I could hear entirely your question. I had some cuts, but I think I understood that I need to say something more about the origins of funds and the way to do it. So that's indeed the mechanism is open calls. So we have open calls focused on innovation and validation of our public digital environment. So the middleware and the standards and the definitions on Alentejo protocol. That's the first wave of open calls. And then the principle is synchronizing calls that are open under European Regional Development Fund for the several topics that are covered by the smart communities definition. And why to synchronize it? Okay, that's exactly what is said on the European Innovation Agenda. That is what was suggested by the European Committee of Regions, and fortunately taken on board of the European Innovation Agenda, and that refers to the need of using structural funds in order to drive innovation and to pull innovation from the demand side, and that is feasible if we synchronize calls from the European Regional Development structural funds and operational programs in the region, if we synchronize it with a specific and clear strategic agenda that is not only based on specialization, but indeed based on openness and freedom to innovate, and those solutions that are coming from those calls and free in the sense of very creative and transformative, and those solutions may scale up under synchronization between several structural programs. So that's why we are in a phase of negotiating with regions exactly those roadmaps that may interface the digital transformation agendas that each region have with the smart communities leverage. It has to be noted that smart communities doesn't mean we cope with, we synchronize with digital transformation, we leverage digital transformation, but smart communities is not digital communities. When we say smart communities, we are talking about, we are materializing the concept into domains that are indeed not necessarily only digital, perhaps mobility. Mobility, it's about moving people to access public services or just to exercise their citizenship and being free to move. And sometimes there are challenges to mobility that are related to specific publics or that are related to the fact that the geography of the regions is too extended and that's difficult to serve everyone. And those are not digital challenges, but indeed they are better solved if synchronized with digital transformation. That's exactly the principle, is indeed to synchronize agendas of digital transformation with smart communities and to use those digital transformation agendas from the structural funds in the regions that indeed are also synchronized with the smart specialization agendas, and to use those calls to be open for smart innovation. So that's more or less the mechanism, and indeed those funds are there, but other funds may come, may we be able to attract partners and competencies in order to do new calls and to establish programs, for instance, with EIC, EIT, or other mechanisms.
Thank you very much, Marcos. I think that was a very clear answer. We have to move on with our next speaker. Please stay connected so you can still hear the next speaker as well. Who is Mrs. Elodie Salle, who is a principal consultant in the policy and research team of EcoRIS in Brussels. And her research focuses on sustainable urban and rural policies and on developing and implementing stakeholder engagement tools. She's involved as a project manager in the coordination of the Horizon 2020 project Sherpa. And in this project, she co-designed the Delphi method for 20 multi-actor platforms on the long-term vision for rural areas and followed also its implementation. Elodie, if you are with us and if you can hear us, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and apologies for not being with you in Ostende today, but I'm very happy to having the opportunity to present a little bit about Sherpa, the project that I'm managing with my colleague Olivier Chartier. So I have a couple of slides that I will share with you, and I'm happy to reply to any questions you may have afterwards. So you should be able to see my presentation now. If not, let me know. But indeed, I wanted to focus my presentation of the work of Sherpa on the long-term vision for rural areas. You may have heard about this before, of course, also after the presentation of this morning from DG Agri. But since the start of the project coincided with the launch of the debate around the long-term vision for rural areas, we decided to really root our work in this initiative. So maybe a couple of words before about Sherpa, about the project if you haven't heard about it before. So Sherpa stands for Sustainable Hub to Engage into Rural Policies with Actors. We started in October 2019, so it's 3 years ago. We have 1 year left. We are 17 partners in total. I work at Ecoris, which is a consultancy based in Brussels, and we work mainly for the European Commission, and we work with many DGs, specifically with DG Agri and DG Regio, for instance, which are particularly relevant for this project. So the main objective of Sherpa is to formulate recommendations for future policies, future agenda, on the future research agenda, but also rural areas. So these are the two main strands of work, and how we do it. It's basically we engage on the ground with science society policy interfaces, so multi-actor platforms. I know in Coastal you have multi-actor labs, if I understood well. So it's a bit of the same principle, a bit of the same idea. I'll explain more in a second. But this is how we also address the main objective, which is to formulate recommendations. We have 4 guiding principles, which are, of course, quite important when implementing this 4-year project. First is flexible programming, so we are quite free in deciding what we want to work on, what the topics we want to focus on. So Sherpa is a CSA. We don't have any specific thematic focus. So this is why also we are quite flexible in deciding what are the subject we want to discuss about, as long as it's of course relevant for rural actors. Then impartiality and transparency. This is again linked to the process that we have put in place. We want to be as transparent as possible when we design the work for the different maps, so the multi-actor platforms, and they are always involved in the process. Of course, diversity of EU rural territories and multi-level interactions. So the main principle of the multi-actor platforms is that we engage 3 types of actors. So representatives of science, so researchers, representative of society, so it can be citizens, NGOs, for instance, and representative of policy. So, and these 3 communities, so actors, are equally represented in each of the Sherpa maps. And last but not least, co-construction is always very prominent in the implementation of the project. We, in every step of the project, try to involve as much as we can not only the Sherpa partners, but also all the members of the maps to really co-design the work of the project. So you may wonder, where are those maps? So this is a cartographic map of where the platforms are located in the EU and in Europe, as we have 2 also maps in the UK. So the rural interfaces of the maps are here to co-learn and co-create knowledge throughout the projects. Some maps are covering local area, regional area, or also national at national level. There's also one European map which follows the same idea or same principle of having the three communities represented. So science, society, and policy. We have 41 maps in total. When starting the project, we had 20 first, and then this year in January, 21 additional maps were established. So we have 41 in total. That's about 600, a bit more people, which is quite a lot actually. Very also insightful and also enriching debates in each of the map. Again, depending on the territory that they are covering, we have different issues or challenges arising, but it's always very I think interesting to see what are the diversity, but also what are the commonalities between the different actors. So how do we work? As I said before, so every time we engage the maps, but we do a bit of work before that. We start with what we call a discussion paper. So a discussion paper is a document which aims at triggering discussion within each map. So we choose a topic, we select a topic, which is selected by bottom-up, top-down approach. So we either discuss with the European Commission, with our policy officer, or also with different Sherpa partners or different map members of what are the main topics they would like to discuss. And then we select one topic or several topics, and we draft a paper. So this discussion paper is 15, 20 pages or maybe a bit more document on one specific topic that we then propose to all the maps. And the maps decide on which topic they want to discuss. So for instance, this year they have 4 topics. So each map has chosen one topic they want to work on. What we ask them to do is to organize themselves in discussing this specific topic. So it's usually throughout workshops. So 1, 2, maybe 3 workshops they can organize. They also can do surveys and conduct interviews or any kind of other stakeholder engagement tool that they can choose as a bit. They're free to choose basically. And what we ask them to do is to either usually have a discussion paper, but most importantly a map position paper. So we ask them to identify what are usually the key challenges, the key opportunities related to the topic they have chosen, and to formulate recommendations. Once we have all the papers on the maps, so for instance, we have 41 maps this year, so we'll receive 41, and we are actually still receiving now the 41 map position papers. We look at all the recommendations and we draft a Sherpa position paper, which is a paper synthesizing all the discussion from the maps, which are in the position papers. As I said before, we have an EU level map, which comes a bit at the end of the process, meaning that we have a meeting with the map, and we present what are the key messages or key results which have emerged from the discussion from the national and regional maps. And we also ask for the other maps, the EU level map members to come up with certain recommendations or to reflect also on the key messages. And once we have that, we can finalize the Sherpa position paper. So I will go into more details in a minute about the different topics we have covered. But just to give you an illustration of what we have done regarding the long-term vision for rural areas, because as you will see, it has really been of a big influence for the work of Sherpa, and we have really rooted our work in the long-term vision. So as you may know, in September 2019, the European Commission announced preparation of the communication on the long-term vision for rural areas. This has been asked by Ursula von der Leyen to two DGs and one vice presidency. So the two DGs are the DG Agri, DG Regio, and also the vice presidency for demography and democracy, who has the coordination role. So we decided to focus on this topic for the first year. So just to remind you, we started also in the 1st October 2019. So it was quite of an opportunity for us to look into this topic. So we had this discussion paper that we submitted to all maps. In the meantime, we have later in the year, we have submitted an input to the roadmap on the long-term vision for rural areas. But during the summer, the maps have worked on this specific topic and have produced papers on the long-term vision for rural areas. In January 2021, we launched 3 other topics. So after having worked on the long-term vision for rural areas, which is quite a broad topic, we try to look into more details, and then have the Sherpa position paper of 2020 being published. Then the maps started to work on 3 new topics in 2021. We also participated in the Rural Vision Week, which was organized last year in March. And in June 2021, the communication on the long-term vision for rural areas was published. Here we were happy to see that Sherpa was mentioned a couple of times. I will get back also on that later on, but it was also very nice to see that some of the recommendations, or at least some key messages, were also mentioned in the communication, which also led us to present during the COP26 and also at the European Rural Parliament meeting, which were both meetings were organized in autumn last year. Then earlier this year, we decided to have a third cycle with 4 new topics, again, still linked and rooted in the long-term vision for rural areas, but more specifically into the 4 pillars that were mentioned also earlier this morning. So rural areas more connected, resilient, prosperous, and resilient. And then we participated also into the Rural Pact Conference, which was organized in June this year. And also very most recently, I was a month ago in Poland and Kielce to also represent Sherpa at the European Rural Parliament event, and we will be also co-organizing a side event at the European Week of Regions and Cities with the Polyrural projects. So in terms of specific topics, as I was mentioning before, so we select specific topic that we then we prepare a discussion paper that we submit to the different maps. So in 2022, as I was mentioning before, our work focused on the long-term vision for areas. We had map position paper, and then the final product was the position paper on long-term vision for rural areas, which was a dedicated contribution from the project to the long-term vision. What were the key messages? So this is just a summary of what I've just said before. So it was the aim was really to contribute to the debate and identifying key issues that were emerging from the multi-actor platforms from Sherpa, and also we asked all the maps through the Delphi methods to really think about, okay, what are your desired vision for rural areas in 20 years, so for 2040, and what could be the key enabling factors to achieve this vision. So it was quite interesting exercise that really obliged the map members to really reflect on what could be their ideal and desired future for 2040. So as a summary, there were key I would say, key three messages which emerge from this exercise. So 3 headline, would say, characteristic of the long-term vision. First, that's we need to enhance smart rurality and digitalization. That digital should be meant to achieve, for instance, more support for the creation of jobs, products, and services, and new ways of working. Also should be there to help citizens or rural inhabitants to be more involved in the debate and policy design and policy making. Linked to that, a second key characteristic which emerged was the empowerment of local actors and communities, meaning that there's a need for more participatory approaches when it comes to designing policies or implementation of public policies in rural areas, and that participation and actions should be facilitated through flexible funding, for instance, schemes that are relevant to the characteristic of different rural areas. And the third key characteristic was the enhancing of multi-level and territorial governance. So this is really something that all maps agreed on, that it needs to be really tailored to the specificity of each area, and that multi-level governance should be at the heart of policy making. And then in terms of these 3 communities I was mentioning before, which are the main, the DNA, I would say, of the Sherpa maps, it reinforced the fact that, of course, science is there to provide an evidence base of opportunities and threats, really to inform the policymakers, for instance, also society, in what are the key challenges for a specific topic, that society articulates the ambitions of communities, they concern, they voice the concern that they have, and that also difficulties to overcome. It provides a really practice-based knowledge and awareness when it comes to policy design or policy implementation, and also there to identify the challenges that they face. And last but not least, but policy is there also to provide leadership. So once evidence is there, people are engaged and also heard. The policy is there to provide leadership for the creation of visions for rural areas in Europe, but tailored to the very relevant different levels of governance. So once we have had this exercise in 2020, we moved then to 2021 with 3 specific topics. So these 3 topics that you can see on the slide. First, we decided to focus on climate change, and more specifically on climate change and environmental sustainability, because from the work on the first year on the long-term vision, we saw that the first topic really was quite important to the maps. And the second one on economical diversification, so change in production and diversification of the rural economy, was also the second topic that some maps have chosen to work on. And there's a third one, which is called Alternative Future, well, Rural Futures. This is where we offered the opportunity to some platforms to still work on the vision specifically, and we implemented the foresight exercise. So also using the work that the Joint Research Center have done when it comes also to the development of the communication that was published last year in June. The GRC has prepared 4 type of scenarios, and we asked some of the maps who were still wanted to work on their long-term vision to see what kind of, in which scenario they were seeing themselves. So this year we also try to be a bit again more specific, but also to look at other topics. So you can have a look at them on the screen. The first one was more on social dimension of rural areas. This has not been really our focus since the beginning of the project, but so we wanted to have something a paper only dedicated to these social aspects specifically. Then digitalization is also something quite important. We also have partners in our consortium who are coordinators of the Zira project that you may know. That was also an opportunity for us to learn more from their work, but also to engage with MAPS on this topic. The two other topic are the most also preferred ones from the MAPS. So one on sustainable and resilient supply chains, and another one on climate change and land use. So you can see that's just for this slide that we are trying to be each year a bit more specific. So we started with a quite broad topic on the long-term vision for all areas, with many different challenges identified. The maps have reflected a lot on this, but every year we try to be even more specific. And of course, next year is the last year, so we can go further. But one of the objectives of Sherpa is also to give the opportunity for the maps to continue even beyond the project. So if you see that some topics or that you could be interested, or know that somebody could be interested, don't hesitate to get in touch. I'll be happy to give more information on the maps and also their way of functioning. I wanted to also give you a brief overview of the impact of the project. Because it's always important to take that into account, knowing that something very important that I should have perhaps mentioned before is that we are, when drafting the discussion paper, we always look at the relevant results of ongoing or past research projects. So we have a tool specifically designed and which is also done by one of our partners in a specific work package. So they have designed this kind of crawler where by using key terms, you can look for specific Horizon projects, for instance. So we have started only with the CORDIS database, but the idea is also to include other databases. So if we look at, if I go back, for instance, climate change and land use, we have, before drafting the discussion paper, we have listed some key terms, words that are related to this topic. And then we have looked into the crawler and extracted the list of the project. Then we have a first selection of the project, which are the ones the most relevant, and then we look at the specific results. So in such way that we also use all the knowledge, the past knowledge, the evidence which have been identified by other Horizon 2020 projects or FP7. So coming back to the impact, as I said before, we have noticed, that that Sherpa has been considered and reported in the communication of the European Commission published last year. So particularly the discussion and the position papers on the long-term vision. So that was quite an achievement, and we're very happy about that. There's also, Sherpa is included in the within insights of the European Research and Innovation Project in one of the staff working documents, which is one of the documents, as you know, accompanying the communication from the European Commission. We also try to be involved in different events, not only from Horizon 2020 project, but also in other settings. So as the COP26, the European World Parliament I mentioned, and also the European Week of Region and Cities. And just my last slides on what's next. So now we are receiving the position papers from the MAPS who have worked on the 4 topics I mentioned just now. We will be working on the position paper, so following the process I have just described. And next year, it will be our last year. So we are ending in September 2023. We want to ask the maps to reflect on the theme of governance. So this is also quite wide topic, but the idea is to really think about how the involvement of different actors can be improved, or and any recommendation may arise from that. So this is the main topic that we'll be focusing on next year. And just to give you key dates on the annual conference on the 31st of January and 1st of February. So this is the first one, and the final conference, which will be on the 20th and 21st of June next year. So thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I remain at your disposal if you have any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions from the room?
Thank you, Elodie, for giving a very good picture of the Sherpa project, its objectives and results. I was wondering, looking at where we are now with Coastal at the end of the project and the knowledge exchange platform we are launching, how do you see potential role for contributing to what you are trying to achieve from our project, or the other way around, to align the two initiatives?
I'm sorry, the sound, there are a lot of cuts, so I don't really hear you properly.
Okay. How do you see, how do you think you can align the two initiatives? Our project is ending with the knowledge exchange platform, and you have 1 year ahead. You're working on these position papers. How can we contribute?
Okay, sorry, I really cannot hear you. There's just one word.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is basically, do you see a potential for collaboration between Coastal, so the knowledge exchange platform that has been designed in Coastal, and what you are doing in your project with the upcoming remaining year in your project? How do you see possible collaboration between the two?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, definitely. I think looking at the multi-actor labs and multi-actor platforms, I think that should be something that we could envisage having some collaboration or exchange between the members of the actors, the platforms and the labs. I think this is definitely something we could explore. And then when it comes also to I'm thinking about the topic of governance. This is something that may be interesting for the members of either your consortium, but also in the multi-actor labs. I don't know if you're looking specifically at rural areas, but for sure there are many coastal areas which are in rural territories. So this is something we can definitely look into, and we'll be very happy also to collaborate.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have one actually, if no one else has, because I found it very interesting, you talking, but I was wondering two things that are not entirely clear to me. Is it you look at science, policy, and society interactions, which is very relevant, I think, but it makes it also very relevant. How do you define who are the members of your map who are in that group, which are, if I understand it correctly, between 10 and 15 persons on average? And how do you facilitate the writing of these position papers? What kind of methods do you do, and who writes it, and what kind of methodology do you use for writing them?
Okay, so on the identification of the members, some maps were created based on an already existing group, so the local action group, so the LAGs, for instance, and this was done through the facilitation of our partners. So in each of the map, we have what we call a map facilitator and a map monitor. So the facilitator is really here to organize and coordinate the work of the map, and the monitor is more here to see to prepare the meetings, for instance, to be there to support the facilitator. So on the first question, some of the maps were established based on already existing groups, so the LACs, for instance. Some were created out of scratch, I would say. And then on your second question, how do we facilitate? So we have 2 members of our consortium who are indeed facilitating and monitoring each of the map. So for instance, myself, I'm the monitor of the EU level map. And Olivier, my colleague, who is the coordinator of the project, is the facilitator of the EU level map. And the papers are, so the discussion papers are drafted by the members of the consortium. And the position papers of the multi-actor platforms are drafted by the members or with the support of the map facilitator and monitor. So it's really a team effort, I would say, that we organize, and I must say I'm very happy with how it's going so far, because we receive quite interesting documents, really, with some research behind. It's quite an interesting process to witness, I think, in terms of the whole, starting from one topic, and then at the end you have, well, for the team on governance, we'll have 41 papers, and then at the end, one single paper synthesizing everything. So hopefully also being able to identify and make sure that all the maps are represented in this paper.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no further questions, then it's time for coffee. So there's a small coffee break. Thank you very much, Elodie and Marcos, if you're still with us.
So before she's leaving, Rachel, thank you for all your cooperation. And also don't forget, all mall have put a stand in the demonstrator room for the people that were yesterday. I think you already had enough, but you can still take some. But for the people that came today, normally you can take a bag somewhere on the table, and there are some regional products still over if it was not eaten yet yesterday. So people that need honey from Spain, Advocaat from the Outlandpolder. I don't know if there's still brandy left over. A few brandy. So for the people that yesterday didn't do the round, it's also a nice way to see the banners and some more geographical visualization of what they have been doing. So let's go to the coffee break and see you later.
Yes. Yes, because there's a
Ja. Ja, daar Hannelore, Alexei, Céline. Ja, en Massimo. Alexei. Die is net vertrokken. Die zit in het panel. Anders ga ik iemand anders in het panel moeten hebben. Nee, Joris. Céline? You can take a seat. I will shortly. Je bent bij de Pol West-Vlaanderen en je bent verantwoordelijk voor de Blue Economy.
Verantwoordelijk is een groot woord.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for staying for the last session. A lot of people already went home, but we will now have a short panel discussion where you will have the opportunity yourself to ask questions. Let me first introduce you the panel members. First of all, Ben de Pauw, he is from Provincial Development Agency of the province of West Vlaanderen, and he works on the blue economy, so economy at sea. Then Hannelore Malfes, she is coordinator of the territorial office for the coast for the province of West Vlaanderen, so also from Belgium, and she is responsible for different projects, partnerships, participation processes in the Belgium coastal zone. Hannelore is also an advisor for the North Sea Commission, an international organization that works on the strengthening of partnerships between the regions around the North Sea. Then I will walk to the other side. Then we have Alexei Voinov. He is professor at the Department of Civil Engineering and Management at the University of Twente. And his main specialty is participatory modeling. He is also a member of our advisory committee, so welcome. And finally, we have Céline Karasinski. She works at the Chambre of Agriculture Network in France. She is involved in rural development and research and innovation. She is also involved as an innovation farm practice officer at the European Innovation Partnership Agricultural Production and Sustainability, EIP Agri Support Facility for the DG Agri. Welcome, everybody. So I have prepared a few questions, but feel free to ask questions yourself. Let's first start with this morning. This morning there was some discussion about the need for a bottom-up approach to engage stakeholders for change. In practice, however, we see that this is often very difficult because stakeholders tend to focus on their personal interest instead of focusing on the greater good. How can we overcome and create more engagement for larger societal challenges that are often less visible? I can give an example, like for instance, eutrophication of the surface waters. It's very difficult to engage stakeholders to work around this. So how do you think we can work with stakeholders from a bottom-up approach on such problems? Maybe I can start with Alexei.
I thought ladies. I thought it's usually ladies first, no? Okay. Well, I think the only way that this can start working is if we undergo a pretty major paradigm shift when we start explaining our kids at school that the whole idea of growing and consuming more is futile and it's going to really destroy the planet and us. And that'll take a while. And like you said, it's easier to promise all the good life in front of us, but in reality, we see that probably we are at a stage, at least my generation feels very guilty for the fact that it's pretty obvious that we had a life which was much better than the life of our kids is going to be. So unless we really explain these things to the younger generation, I don't think we'll see any change. So it's really a matter of raising this awareness starting from kindergarten or maybe even earlier. We cannot simply afford to continue consuming more. The paradigm of growth is leading us nowhere. And it's only unfortunate that in most of the documents that we see coming from the European Commission, from the government representatives, is still about economic growth. It's still about GDP, and and the whole idea that we should continue growing if we want to succeed is quite devastating. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that unless we really start from the beginning, and first of all, start from ourselves and see how we are consuming and what kind of lifestyle we choose to pursue. And that could also relate to a lot of priorities and a lot of goals of the Coastal Project, in fact. And we might talk about that probably later, but we still believe and we still live under the old paradigm of continuous growth. And I think that's what's important. Your turn.
That's a very great answer. Thank you. Maybe some other opinions here? Hannelore, why not?
I'm willing to, yes, because I liked when in your question you had the bottom-up approach, working with stakeholders on a common vision. And I do believe that's indeed the way to work, because as the gentleman was saying, the big ideas, we all feel that they are end of lifetime. So we have to do it otherwise. And I do believe if you put people together around the table and make the problem real and tangible for them, then you can get results. Then you can make a change, even on a very small scale. And I know we're not going to solve world problems with this very small scale, but it's a first step. I've been in a meeting with the local municipality on reconversion of housing. And we were talking about, yes, these houses, I'm very sorry, but they have to go. The people who own this house were there. But as soon as you start to explain why it needs to be happening, and that you can have some kind of a time perspective saying, within 30 years, we will have to rethink it. You can get people along in your story, but you have to have, I think, a time vision. You have to have a framework where you're working in, and you have to have some political will. But that was also in the discussion this morning. I think there are multiple elements that needs to be there just to make the change possible.
I agree with with you, of course, and I think it's very important. And I'm convinced that the discussion with all the stakeholders is the key to solve a lot of problems we have, and like eutrophisation, for example. And I work and I represent the farmer in my region, and I know that when we organize some meetings with the farmer, but not only them, but with hunters, environmental NGO and other municipalities and all the stakeholders, it's difficult to manage, it's difficult to facilitate this kind of meeting. It's not a pleasure to do that sometimes, but at the end we arrive to some main solution and together, and when you know your neighbors, it's easier to work with him, it's easier to understand him, and I think it's very, very important. This multi-actor approaches is one of the key.
Do you have something to add, Ben?
Maybe one thing I can add from my perspective is that if you look at developments and if you want to go forward in life, it's always outweighing risks and benefits. Like we discussed this morning, everybody agrees that we want a greener future, that we want a sustainable future. No one is opposed to that, but the cost that is linked to that is obviously, yeah, it has to be come from somewhere. And the cost is also linked to the risks that you take. So if I, for instance, take offshore wind as an example, 10 years ago here in Belgium, if you were talking about offshore wind, that was something very new. High risks involved with that, high costs involved with that. Today, if we look to the electricity market, that it's exploding because of all the reasons that we know. These risks that we took 10 years ago, a decade ago, obviously outweigh now the situation that we have. Now the idea is even to go further in Europe, in the North Sea basin, in the Mediterranean, and so on, even in the Atlantic, to build more offshore wind, more energy renewables. So it's a matter of taking the risks and outweighing the risks versus the benefits as well.
Can I just quickly make a note that you do realize that you're again talking about more.
Absolutely.
So, and that's exactly the kind of thinking that is very deeply engraved in our mentality, in the way we deal with problems. And honestly, I'm not sure that this can really solve the problem, because yes, we can build more wind turbines. It'll take some time, and then we will realize that actually now we have to think about decommissioning old ones, and now we have to again build more, and then suddenly we do the life cycle assessment, which shows us that actually we don't know what to do with the blades. We don't know where to put them because they don't decay. They're just there forever. So we have landfills of this fiberglass, and that's where this more and more paradigm takes us, because the more we do, the more problems in a way we create. So in a way, I would also suggest to keep in mind that there's also the less paradigm, where basically, I was actually quite pleased to hear Macron's statement. How can we deal with the coming energy crisis? You know, put on a turtleneck and just put your thermostat to a lower degree. Save some energy, because every kilowatt saved is no different than a kilowatt produced. So maybe that's the mentality that we could also somehow propagate and somehow try to embed in our future generations.
I absolutely agree with you, but I think we also have to realize that our way of life is also evolving, and the energy demand per capita is also increasing if you compare that to, let's say, 50 years ago. So even if we would reduce our energy use, water use, whatever resource we have available, which is definitely something we should do, the energy demand, the water demand will still increase. So we need solutions for that.
And why is that? If we start to consume less, why the per capita should go up?
I think it will still just follow the evolution we have started and continue to do.
But that's the point. Are we actually on the right trend? Or on the right track? Are we on the right trajectory? This evolution that is happening.
Should we stop innovation then altogether?
That's not about innovation. I mean, innovation is fine, but innovation is not growth.
One of the interesting outcomes of the Coastal project was also that we modeled water resources, of course. And when you have more water available because you tap into new resources, you start to use more water. And actually your water shortage, your problem with water, doesn't decrease. It stays the same. So I think it's a good viewpoint to see new water resources, especially as a way to replace the old water resources which were not sustainable by better sustainable, but not to increase the total amount of water, because otherwise you will always have not enough water.
It's the well-known Jevons paradox in ecological economics, that when we have more resources, we tend to use more. Yes?
I liked it. It was in one of the slides this morning, I think, from the case study of France. By using less water, we will have more water. So I think the idea is there. And I agree with both. It's not always about growth, we know, but it's sometimes about different use. It's the innovation, it's the differences, it's the transition that we have to make. Indeed, by turning our thermostat and putting our sweaters on, but even also by, which energy do we use? Does it come from windmills? Does it come from oil or gas? It's also those things. Can we do it on a less energy way? It's about the innovation, I think, and the transition towards a more innovative pathway.
And it's also about anticipation, because now if the president of France says that, it's because we are arriving on the wall and it's a crisis and we think that we are not enough energy for this winter. So, but we know that since a long time ago that there is a problem with the energy. And we are obliged to arrive at this kind of level of crisis and to earn that. And why not before?
This brings me to a follow-up question that we also tackled a little bit this morning already. And that is, we see often that politicians tend to work in a very short cycle because they have to be elected each 4 years. While on the other hand, if you look at the solutions and the models we have made in Coastal, they work on a longer cycle, often 30 years, 50 years, maybe even 80 years until the year 2100. How can we bridge the gap between both timescales and what is the way forward? And that's especially a question for those of you who are working a lot with politicians as policymakers. So what do you think? How do you think we can bridge this gap?
I think, from my experience, is indeed you have to have them at the table, but not only them, also the public, also the general public, because the next politician will be somebody from a general public. So it won't be somebody from an administration. You should have your administrations aboard, but you have to have your politician, your current politician, but also your future politician has to be on the table when making the decisions or when plans are being capitalized or thought of.
Other suggestions? Céline, for instance?
I think what also makes sense is we're here for Coastal today, which is a European project, that we also work top-down, and contrary to the question we just asked before. So if a European Union posts or gives a certain directive to follow, then the member states individually can also try to incorporate on the longer term those directives. And I think that also makes sense to bridge that gap on a longer term scale, like the European Green Deal, for instance.
Other comments or?
Well, I think that the politicians are hopeless. Nothing can change them, especially when that's basically their job. So the only thing that comes to my mind is some kind of alternative ways of making decision. Personally, I think there's this idea of citizen councils. I don't know if you've heard about it, when basically people are by random chosen to represent and discuss certain ideas. And I would say that this offers a lot more hope for really making some change, because way that the politicians are making and building their careers, it just molds them in a particular way that I don't think we can ever change. So it becomes like a species trait.
Any suggestions from the public? If not, yes.
I'd like to share with you I've wrote it because my English isn't very good, so please excuse me. Well, I wanted to share an utopia with you. I shared with some of you. What if, instead of producing a large concentration of species in dedicated places like we do in agriculture or aquaculture or so on, and trying to repair the damages due to the, I think it's a bad word, but I tell it, the integration, yes, no integrated in natural balances. What if instead of doing this, human skills were used to increase natural resources, including the resilient processes it contains, and in the huge supply we could do doing this, humans could pick a part of it for the needs, maybe. It's like it would be like becoming hunters and pickers again, but in a new way, maybe. That could be a very new goal and state of mind, but it means to conceive our place on Earth with acting on things not directly related to short-term needs, and being confident on natural balances to provide what we need in processes not always under human full control. It's an utopia but I submit the idea. It's a new hypothesis, maybe. Yes, and further researching plans. And voilà, maybe some program or plans are still there about an idea like this. Maybe you tell me.
Any reflections on this?
Was it clear?
For me, it
can
was
probably
clear.
reflect on anything. Quite likely, this is our future. So, if you remember the graphics that Jean-Luc was showing us earlier today about the predictions of the limits to growth World 3 model. After 2050, we are considering this sharp decline in pretty much everything. And after that, very likely we will be able to go to some kind of a hunter and gatherer society, which according, I think it's Harari who is also saying that actually they were way happier than we are now. It took normally them like 3 to 4 hours per day to maintain their living standards. So, and the rest was just joy and dancing. But with the current number of people that we have on the planet, that's impossible. Obviously.
Indeed. I think this opens a little bit the discussion of sharing and sparing, but that's not the focus point of Coastal. So I would like to move back to the Coastal focus point and ask a more thematic question, something I touched already this morning. In my daily work life, I often see that people really work in a silo, and this is especially true at the coastal region. People working at sea, marine people, making them to connect with people working in the field, agriculture people, is very difficult. And I wonder how can we overcome that? And I had actually prepared a question for Juan Ronco, who was first going to sit in the panel, because I think spatial planning is a nice example of it. Everybody makes a spatial plan. The people at sea make a nice marine spatial plan. But then you see they plan windmill park in Belgium, but the windmill energy, the electricity has to come to the place where people use electricity, harbors, cities, industrial areas. And there is no connection because there is not a good electricity network. And the spatial planning on land cannot manage it. But how can we solve this? Because I think this is really a big challenge, especially for densely populated regions like Belgium and Netherlands, to get more collaboration on the planning side, and then maybe wider also in general, more collaboration. Maybe a nice question for Ben to start.
I can try to give it a go. I think if you look at marine spatial planning, we have the advantage there that essentially no people live there. So if you are active at sea, it means you're doing that for recreational purposes or professional purposes. Compare that to spatial planning in a rural area, for instance, on land. Then you have the principle of not in my backyard. So people don't like big changes very close to their home. You were talking about the offshore wind turbines. Indeed, we need a connection to land. And then, yeah, even if you are at land, you need high voltage cables that transfer the power from one point to another point. And people don't like those high voltage cables near their homes, obviously. And I think that's a problem that exemplifies also the bigger issue that you mentioned. If you want to combine or at least allow the marine spatial planning and the land spatial planning to talk to one another and make one integrated plan, which would be the ideal case, I think, you will need to overcome the opinions of people and get them again involved into the process. So I think that's why the public involvement in more and more projects that we see on a European level even is so important now.
Thank you. Any other reflections?
Yeah, I agree with Ben that we have to work on this integrated marine coastal plan, because there are a lot of land-sea interactions, and whatever you do at the seaside involves also a land component, and what you do on the land also involves the sea. Personally, I'm afraid that we are making the same mistakes at sea as we did on land. We have to treat our seas as a common good, because we share it along a lot of people, a lot of countries, but what we are now doing is really putting, in Dutch we say verkavelen. We are really saying, okay, you can use this part and you can use this part, and these are the conditions you can use it, but we forget to see the bigger picture, and that the sea is common for everybody, and it's also common for grandchildren. So I think that's a very important aspect that we shouldn't forget.
I'm from the agriculture sector, and I just thinking that I don't know the other sectors, and it's very separate. The farming, the agriculture, and the marine activity. It's not the same organization. It's not the same. There is no discussion between the two worlds. So I think with coastal, it was very important to have this kind of discussion between the sectors, and we have to imagine new place for discussion, because here in France, in other country, I don't know, but in France there is no place for discussion between the sectors. So the marine sector says build this plan, this job alone, and the farming sector in another side. So it's my opinion.
I think it's a big challenge. Myself, I work as an innovator. I see that many projects like Coastal, but other projects do a good attempt to bring people together, to gather information, to do innovation, and then what happens after coastal? That's a very good question. I'm afraid for the Belgium coastal zone, I don't know. How will we bring people together? Because our money or time runs out. And then somebody should take up, we are researchers. We cannot always keep bringing people together. So somebody else should take up this role. It's a good question. If somebody has an idea how to do it, feel free to answer now. But it's not easy, of course. And it's not only between coastal people and rural people, but also within the rural society, for instance, it's not easy to bring people together.
It's not easy together, and it's not easy, it's not sufficient, it's not enough. Just people together, it's a big step already. The first one, yes, it's a first step, but we have to create methods, also real methods, real knowledge to know how to make something really useful out of it, out of this gathering. And it's not enough to put people together. You have to have methodology, understand how people react, and so on. So we need a little sociology, a little knowledge on it, because it's not so natural, I think.
We should have somebody following Coastal from the beginning for similar projects and keep continuing this process. I mean, from my experience in, let's say, environmental management, you can do a lot of things. But let's say that something happens and you need to go. The system can collapse at the same time. Unfortunately, from my experience, you always need somebody to drive the system a bit, like we did in the months. We did facilitations. We brought people together, we spoke with them, and they liked it. It was really nice, and we got these results. But it's not easy to continue, the same people to continue the process, because we need to find new projects, we need to find, I don't know, whatever. So maybe we could think in new projects that, okay, somebody could be something like a follower, or somebody who could be identified from the months, yes, and study together with us. We also learned a lot of things during the process. So somebody who could, continue this process could be something to, keep it up and running through a biomatic process, so through persons, because we still need persons to do things.
But I think also, just as we discussed a little bit yesterday, is that we collect all of this data, but we don't have methodologies for implementing it into the policymaking, like to actually use it, like create decisions that are based on these exact things that stakeholders and experts say. Like, although they can sit together in projects and agree upon, like, these are the main challenges and these are the ways to solve it. If they're not actually solved this way, it doesn't really get the value. Like, the value won't be realized.
Especially if you need 10 years for change.
Yeah.
So you need somebody who could follow it for the 10 years or the 20 years.
Yeah, but we need specific, like, exact ways how to implement this type of knowledge into the decision making, and also policymakers that are willing to do it. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
I think they can do it together.
Yeah.
Ben, did you want to comment on that?
Well, it's actually a question back to you both, following on your interesting discussion. What type of institution or organization, or even type of profile of person, would you suggest then to follow up after such a project like Coastal? And then combined to that, is that the person that can do the translation from research to policy? because, like you said, it's indeed a big step going from research to really a law.
Could be a person with these skills, but okay, it is new also. It comes out from this discussion, but yes, I don't know if there is a specific organization that can do that. But at the local scale, it could be. I don't know if at the regional scale it would work.
But if you mention that there's no such organization, then maybe that's exactly the answer to our question, that there should be some kind of organization, but maybe on the different regional levels there are...
The multi-actor, the MAL, could be a citizens' community already created by different sectors. So this could be a good basis for such a process to continue.
There are some, actually, organizations like these. For example, for those of you who played Serious Game, you heard about Senja municipality. And within the municipality, you have clusters with the different sectors that actually aim to do this. I found out that they actually had some kind of communication platform already, but the cluster was not big enough and it hasn't been able to communicate it thoroughly enough. So the stakeholders that participated in the workshops or the MALs, they didn't know about the platform even within the same local community. So although you have some of these organizations, you still need even more communication.
In our region in France, there is this kind of organization who work to bridge the gap between urban and rural sectors, and I think they can enlarge their mind and integrate the coast in. They have the methods and they know how to organize this, and I think we are stronger together. So if I don't agree with the idea to invite the policymaker at the beginning of the process. I think we have to work together in group and to learn for the other, and then together, stronger, we can go and see the policymaker and the collectivities and municipality with a common project and explain, and I think it could be like this. No, too late.
Short comment.
Just a short comment. I mean, I think it's just how the whole science enterprise is funded that is flawed. I can only applaud to the coastal attempt to create this knowledge sharing platform, but the funding is running out, right? So who will be doing this when there is no funding available? And that's what really destroys this whole communication process, because we are funded to do research, and that's it. There's really no funding for actioning this research. And in terms of when to engage the policymaker, I would say as early as possible, just like any other stakeholder. Because if you come to the policymaker with a solution, very likely they will be looking for something else. Yes.
Not their own solution.
Exactly.
So it's not,
It's not their baby.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I agree.
It's a very nice discussion, but we're running a little bit out of time. So I will ask a short question about the Farm to Fork strategy, which is a part of the Green Deal of the European Union. So the Farm to Fork strategy want to find a balance between nature, food production and the well-being, while also increasing the competitiveness and resilience. Is this possible to find such a balance, and how can system thinking and system modeling contribute to finding such a balance? It's not an easy question. Maybe Alexei, you can start.
My answer is very simple. I mean, just put less on the fork. get used to eating less. As a first step, try to limit your consumption of meat products. Darn, we know that this is a major contributor to climate change. The CO2 emissions are horrendous. I mean, let's start from that. But then again, let's communicate it better. Let's make sure that our kids know about that. That the luxury way of us living has to come to an end. But then I said luxury, but then it's the definition of luxury that can be also very different. I had an interesting conversation recently. Everybody knows that Finland actually ranks first in terms of their happiness and well-being, like 3 years already in a row. And I have a good friend in Finland, and we talked about this, and I said, like why? What do you think? What makes Finns so happy? And he said, you know, we are born to the idea that we really have nothing. The country is cold, climate is bad, production is low, we don't have any natural resources. Our expectations are very low. And then when suddenly we realize that, well, after all, life is not that bad. And everybody's happy. So maybe it's the expectations that we communicate to our younger generation, which really screws up the whole fork to farm process.
Farm to fork.
Oh, sorry.
Farm to fork.
I agree with Alexei completely that it's essentially a cultural aspect, and that's unfortunately, I think, also the problem to find that balance, that changing the cultural heritage of people or communities is a big challenge. It's not easy to say, let's say, starting tomorrow, we will train our children or educate our children that their expectations should be way lower.
Because I've got young adults as children, you know, and they teach me a lot, and they see the world a very different way, and they are going to deal with all of that in a very different way than we can even imagine, I think.
Absolutely.
We ran out of time, but
we have to be optimistic.
We ran out of time, but as we started 20 minutes late, I will ask, is there another question from the public? Short question. We should all have questions after this discussion, so...
Don't be shy.
I have a question related to coastal as well, and I'm wondering from the different points of view from all the four of you actually. And we have invested a lot of time in coastal in making models with people, making models, modeling with people. So I have quite some modeling experience. I've experienced working with people, not with models and people. That was the first time for me, at least, to work with, to merge the two. And that was quite a challenge. And one of the challenges that I met is that, you know, working with people is already very difficult. Modeling is quite difficult. And merging them and getting the people understand, keep them on board during that whole process. I don't know. I'm really not sure. I think we managed quite well, but I'm also very sure that we lost many people on the way. That we simply not been able to keep them following our process. We did our best, but I'm sure we lost quite some of them. So my question is a little bit, what do you think about the potential of modeling in these kind of participatory processes, so combining participation with modeling? And what is your experience, how you can make it easier so that the modeling is functional, useful, accepted by people who then look at the result and they believe it. They think, you know, I know what it works for, I believe the content, and I know what I can do with it from different perspectives, from different stakeholders, policymakers, all kinds of participants.
Yeah, I can I can answer because we are thinking about this now. Because just for the story, I was at one of the first meeting of the project. I didn't follow the project, and I arrived here at the final conference. So first, with my colleague, my colleague from the Chamber of Agriculture, we are the foot on the field, in the field. So it's modeling. It's a huge job, and it's very complicated at first to understand what it means, what are the main objectives, and for us it was, wow, it's too complicated. And then now with the result, and maybe because Inrae changes his speech and try to explain more try to explain easier with another language all this model. I think now we are ready to discuss with the farmers. Now it's the purpose. We have to explain to the farmers the different scenario, and to it's not the end, it's the beginning of the story. So we have to discuss with them and to explain. So we have one step now to build together. I think it's how to make the interpretation and to have an easy presentation with a very nice slides. Maybe we have to really discuss about this, build this presentation, and then organize some meetings together to explain. But there is a kind of translation. We have to do a kind of translation.
Ben?
Yeah, if I can comment on that, I think it's really a trade-off between accuracy and complexity. So if you are talking with a lot of stakeholders and you want to explain the very basic principles to them without really going to complex equations, because that obviously scares them off. If you together build up from intuitive or first principles, the ideas into the model, and then let the system model that Jean-Luc and Bastiaan have very much experience with, let that model run, you can come to, like Jean-Luc said this morning, counterintuitive results. And I think that is exactly what we were going through or going for. If you try to explain all the complex equations, you lose them immediately. But if you have those counterintuitive results based on very intuitive input, then you can, like my colleague said, can try to translate that into very practical examples that will help them. And I think that is the most important part. If you make it too complex and try to explain every step in the process, you will lose them, but you will have a very high precision maybe in your modeling. So I think that's the strength of the system modeling here, that you can have very simple inputs and somewhat reliable or quite reliable outputs that might be counterintuitive.
As a just a follow-up question for you. You're a functionary, let's say, kind of policymaker. Is it for you very important to have good numbers out of a model or to have the trends right? I mean, it takes for a modeler often much more work of finding much better data, which are probably not there and so on. Anyway, it's much more difficult to find good numbers to say, for instance, you need, if I'm thinking about your sector, you need 1,000 windmills, 1,031, for instance, or just saying we should have somewhere between 800 and 1,200 windmills. The extra effort to get a good number, is this worth for you, the effort we have to make or not?
I think the exact number to make the decisions is, in my opinion, so don't shoot me if you don't agree with me, but is less relevant than getting the ideas and potential outcomes of that. If we look at different scenarios like we did here in Coastal, and you see that increasing wind energy produces more options for, let's say, fresh water options. You can link both of those aspects, but if you now say it's 1,013 turbines or 841 turbines, the ideas are still the same. So it's more an aspect of getting the right conclusions out of it, and the numbers is more relevant if you're a politician and want to post something on social media and say we will build 843 more wind turbines, but that's done just for that aspect, in my opinion.
Hannelore, maybe a very last remark?
Yeah, I just want to say what we expect, I think, from a policymaker, what you expect from scientists is correct. You want it to be scientific proof. You want to rely on them. And I found that's very important. If the numbers, the extra effort, I know from a scientist, that's quite important. But for a policymaker, it doesn't. If the trend is there, and if you can say from your heart, like, we trust, this is gonna be the way, then it doesn't need the extra effort, because as soon as a policymaker, as soon as you see the trend, and then you can have an action more rapidly. Because I was thinking about climate change. If we would wait to finally see if the sea level starts rising, we're still waiting. We know it's gonna happen, but if we wait until the number is there, then we're too late. So we need our action sooner as a policymaker. So I think from scientists, what you expected is reliability, that you know that the numbers are right, it's correct, it's scientifically proved, and you can work on it.
That's maybe a very nice remark to finish this discussion, which probably helps the modelers in the room for their future projects. I want to thank the panel members, and Jurgen has a small gift for you. There will be a reception. There will be a reception, but between you and the reception, there's still Jean-Luc, I guess. But anyway, during the reception, we will have many room for more discussion. Don't hesitate to come to the panel members or to other people, and I hope we will have a fruitful discussion until 6:30, I guess. Then we have to finish. So.
Yeah, again, just to say, normally there are 3 buses, 5:15, 5:55, I guess, 6:35. Normally it's written down on the sheet.
So 6:35 for the last bus, but I guess we will call everybody when the bus arrives at 6:35. But that's the last bus. Okay, and then for the people attending tomorrow, we expect you to be at 8:30 sharp at the train station to be on the bus, because it takes some time to drive to all the places, so 8:30. And is it okay, Jurgen, to...
Yes, we will start, because I think we're like 5, 6 people are in Therma Palace. I think the bus will start there at 8:10. Yes?
So at 8:10 at the Thermae Palace Hotel. And 8:30 at the train station. Be there in time. Yeah. Yeah, you can make it, it's 20 minutes running, I guess, so you can make it if you run. Anyway, be on time, because we don't have time to wait long. And I guess at 8:31 we will leave. Okay, 8:34 maybe, but still we will leave in time, so Jean-Luc?
Thank you, Bastiaan. To conclude today, first of all, I want to thank everyone who made the travel to Ostend, and also the online followers who are attending this event and the conference. Thank you very much for your contributions and also for your participation. I also had some very interesting exchanges between the sessions. I'm sure everyone had that. I also want to thank in particular our external speakers, the online speakers who did a very good job, and also the panel members for a very interesting discussion. In fact, I wanted to join the discussion, but we can do that in a moment if necessary. I also want to thank the Multi-Actor Labs and everyone who presented their work in an excellent manner. It was a very good way how you presented your results. It's true that Coastal is a research project, but we are also expected to create an impact through our platform and in other ways. And I think you made the first step, in fact, by the way you presented your results, your policy recommendations. This is really important and gives a very good overview of the project outcomes and the potential for, impact of the project. Then I want to thank the European Commission, of course, for funding this project. It's not done yet, but we're almost there. Tomorrow we'll have the field trip. And yes, they gave us the opportunity for this work. I also want to thank Jürgen once more. He's doing an excellent job. He's making everything work, and you cannot imagine how much work it is to arrange the logistics. He's been working on it for, I think, more than half a year, and it's taking. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes, please do so. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I'm distributing.
Okay.
Before you leave,
oh.
This is for you, Sharu.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes.
I only have been half year, but I think you've been working much more years on this.
No, but well, thank you, Jürgen, and Leonardo. Of course, I think everyone has been doing an excellent job, and I hope you liked the discussions today. Indeed, you are invited for the field trip, so if you can be there, we'll be able to discuss the project in more detail if necessary. And yeah, that being said, I will conclude the conference day. And you are invited to have a drink and yeah, have more interaction on the project results. Okay, thank you, everyone.
this forward. Now you have after this, so these are all the Chinese, I mean, we want more what is considered not well known things. This wins. Yes, so for one thing, that's what change. Most of them they left No, we can't. But the problem is they're living in such frame that it's very structure. That's the way it's not different from other sectors, projects that and also nobody puts any pressure on them. Nobody is only but also
if you go to America and you say all your doctors, you don't know exactly what he said. You won't accept. But that's a problem.
Unless it's in their exactly.
Super stupid things. What to do now? But something it's more complicated. You don't problem to do it.
But you're not allowed honestly anymore. Yes. It is something I can tell them what I know. Yeah, I can tell them they are like they should be interested. But I can't say now take that money from the schools that don't work, from the daycare, from the healthcare that doesn't work, from the I can't say. It's neither my job nor is it my inclination to start blowing up things. No, I'm not sure. My kids have gone to school and